Hello and welcome to the Plugged In Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Saturnis. And with the new equipment coming out in droves and all the reviews that we're going to be doing this next couple months, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about launch monitor data. I got a great comment recently on the website that prompted me to think about some of these things, and we've gotten great comments over the years about the launch monitor data. And I always answer all of them, but I thought it might be good to do this all in kind of one place, one comprehensive discussion about what data is, what it should be used for, why is it useful, why is it not, and get into just a few different things about that because so many people love the numbers so much. I think it's worth diving in a little deeper and talking more about that. Before we do that, I do want to let you know that for 2025, they have continued to be a great supporter of the program. This episode is brought to you by ShotScope. As always, right here, I've got my ShotScope V5. If you are resolving to play better golf in this year, you've got a ShotTrack. It's the fastest way to learn so much about your game, things you do not realize. Not only how far you're hitting all your clubs, but you're going to get strokes gain data on all the different aspects of your game. You're going to get putting stats, you're going to get driving stats, you're going to get stats on your iron play. You're going to find weaknesses, things where you can practice and use your practice time more effectively to really help your game and bring down your scores on the course. So you can find reviews of all of ShotScope's devices on pluggedingolf.com, or you can go to shotscope.com to buy any of their devices. So I want to start with this. Let's start with just some definitions about launch monitor data, or around launch monitor data. The two easy ones are club speed and ball speed. Those are just generally related in miles per hour, at least here in America. And it's how fast the club is moving as it comes into impact and how fast the ball is moving right after impact. Now, the club head speed thing is not quite as simple as that because it's a question of where are we measuring it. Are we measuring it a few inches before impact? Are we trying to measure it as close to impact as possible? That's why you can see some small variations from one system to another. I tend to be a little faster in terms of club head speed on Foresight than I am on TrackMan. My smash factor tends to be a little higher on TrackMan because that club head speed is a little bit down. It's just where you're measuring it. It's, to me, all that stuff about radar versus camera is not really worth arguing about. It's not something to me, it's not, there's not a way I'm going to spend my time. They're both really good systems. They're professionals, teachers, players, etc. that use both of them. So, whatever. Again, just not a fight I want to get into. But those are the two basics. Your speed is, to me, what you should look at as your constant, or at least your club head speed. It's important to work on your club head speed if you want to play better golf. Speed is a skill. The best players are the fastest players. But in this moment in time, think about your speed as being fixed. You want to get all the ball speed you can out of your club head speed. With a driver, your smash factor, a term I used a second ago, your smash factor is just your ball speed divided by your club head speed. With a driver, we treat 1.5 as perfect. That's supposed to be the ideal perfect strike. That's transferring as much possible speed from the driver to the ball. With fairway woods, we can get into those 1.4s, high 1.4s. Hybrids, similar, maybe mid to high 1.4s. A lot of these distance irons are getting into the 1.4s, even the mid 1.4s. So those are some numbers you want to look at. Look at your smash factor. You'd like that to be as high as possible to let you know that you're getting the most out of your club head speed by making a good, efficient strike. Now, the other two key numbers are launch angle and spin rate. Those are fairly intuitive. Launch angle is just how high does that ball launch off the ground. Obviously, your wedges are going to launch very, very high. Your driver, we'll see people on tour with single-digit launch angles. For most of us, optimal is going to be closer to 14, 15 degrees. But somewhere in that window is where we'd like our launch angle to be. And then spin rate is just how much is that ball spinning. You can break that down different ways. You can talk about the axis the ball is spinning on. Some systems will break down backspin and side spin. The ball can't spin in two directions at one time, but it's just a way to think about that maybe a little more easily than thinking about the spin axis tilt. That might be a little more intuitive for some people to think about backspin and side spin separately, quote unquote. Now, the thing I want to say about launch angle and spin before we move on is that those things are your friend. Those are numbers that we can play with either club fitting or with technique to try to optimize your distance. Again, if your club head speed is fixed and you're hitting the ball perfectly square, you're getting that 1.5 smash with your driver, then there's a ceiling on how far the ball can carry. Generally, it's thought of as 2.5 times club head speed. So if you swing at 100 miles an hour, you can carry the ball about 250 yards if you're fully optimized. Um, so all we want to do is get those numbers in that correct zone. TrackMan has an optimizer. It'll tell you, hey, launch it higher, spin it less, whatever. Um, what I see, and I see it less these days, but it does still seem to be the fashion that people want. They want to fetishize low spin, and they want to see low launch. They want to see piercing shots, even though that's not how the tour players hit the ball, and it's not the best way to hit it a long way. So with those numbers, what I would really suggest you is go to Google and just type in driver optimization. You're going to get every brand will pop up a different chart that they give to their fitters, and you'll find your speed on there, your ball speed or your club head speed, and you'll figure out exactly what combination of launch and spin is going to optimize your distance. We don't inherently want so many of these products, so many of the drivers and everything. Oh, optimized for low spin. Lower than what, right? That's the first thing. What are we getting lower than? You don't want to be lower than optimal. I tend to be a little lower than a lot of people think is optimal. I kind of like that ball flight, and I don't really want to change too much with my swing. But generally, I'm pretty well optimized if you look at my overall all data. I just pulled up Ping's optimal launch and spin chart here. And again, every manufacturer, the numbers may be a little bit different. But if you've got 150 miles an hour of ball speed, which is stout, most people don't swing the driver 100 miles an hour, regardless of what you read online. They're basically telling you that you need to be launching that at 12 degrees or more, more being probably better, 15, 16 probably being really nice. And you don't want your spin much below 2100, 2200. Again, you can have a little less spin if you launch it a little bit higher. But that's kind of where you want to be if you've got 150 miles an hour of ball speed. If you've got less, let's say you're an 80 mile an hour swinger. Your club head speed is 80 miles an hour, which is about average. A perfect strike is going to get you somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 miles an hour of ball speed. Well, if you want to get 200-ish yards of carry, which is about what you can hope for, you're going to need to launch that ball at 15 degrees or more. You're going to need 2,500 RPMs of spin. So going to a fitting and saying, well, I want to get low spin. I want to get 2,000 RPMs of spin. I want to launch a bullet out there at 8 degrees. Oh, you can do that, but you're costing yourself a lot of distance. So I'll close it up there, but I just want to get that idea out there because I see a lot of people looking for that low spin. And I think, again, I always ask the question, lower than what? You don't want to be lower than optimal. You want to optimize. You don't want low spin. You don't want low launch. You don't want high spin or high launch. You want optimal. And optimal depends on your speed. Your speed is the fixed number, the constant in that equation. All right, so the question that came through the website that got me thinking about this, thinking we should do a podcast on this topic, basically asked this. They said, I've followed your reviews over a number of years, and your numbers are always really consistent. They were writing to me, but this could apply to most of the guys on staff. So how do I know what's actually a good club or what's better than another? And he was saying, how do I know? How does Matt Saturnus know what's a good club or not? I think it's also a fair question. The reader, how does the reader know what's a good club or not if those numbers are always very consistent? And there are two key things I would say specifically to that question. There's like 10 different threads I want to pull on, and I'll try and get to all of them. But the two things I would say to that question specifically are, you've got to understand how we're sampling, right? What clubs, what shots we're using when we make that data graphic. And you have to understand that the data, the numbers, are just a picture The text, the written review, which we spend a lot of time on, way more time than we spend making that little number chart, that's the documentary. That's the motion picture, right? If you want to make a, I don't know, just half-baked analogy here, right? Somebody could take a picture of a party you're at. And that picture will tell you some things. It might tell you some of the people who were there. It might tell you where the party was at. But it wouldn't, there's lots of stuff you don't know. Well, I saw Jake at the party, but did Jake have a good time? Did Jake go home with somebody? Who did he come with? What was he drinking while he was there? What did he eat while he was there? There's loads of information that isn't captured in that picture. And the numbers, that data graphic is just a snapshot. What we're able to convey in a review, in the text, is all of that character, all of the nuance, right? Yes, I might put up two drivers that have very, very similar numbers, right? They both carry 260 and roll out to 280 on the simulator, right? Where rollout exists in a way that it doesn't here in Illinois. But if you read the review, you might see two very, very different things. And that's information that I cannot get into a launch monitor graphic, right? You should read the review to understand, how do we get to those numbers? What were the things that I saw during my testing that created those numbers? And let's go ahead and wrap in that sampling piece, because the two things are intermeshed. What we have done since the beginning, for over 11 years now, is that launch monitor data is an average of about 10 of the best shots over several testing sessions. Now, the reason for that is that I want to represent kind of the best version of that club and a consistent version of each club from review to review to review, right? If I just took, let's make it just for a counterexample, the data is going to be based on the first 10 swings with every club. Okay, that might be good for some clubs. That might be really bad for other clubs. Maybe one day I come out of the gates just smoking the ball. Perfect contact. But another club, I'm hitting it terribly, right? I need a lot of time to figure out the club or just to get my mechanics straightened out. If I just grab the first 10 shots and I put up those numbers, well, one club looks like garbage. One club looks great. And that might not be true. Maybe I picked up a club that, let's just, I've said many times, none of the OEMs make bad product. I think the market's just way too competitive to make really bad product. But let's say one driver was genuinely horrible, but I picked it up and I just smoked it, right? I hit 10 shots right off the center of the face, and I put up that data, and it said, yep, these are really good, 1.5 smash, optimized launch and spin, all that. I had another club, really, really good club, right? Objectively really good, very forgiving, really fit me well, better numbers, all that. But the first 10 shots were all dead off the heel. Well, you'd look at that and say, well, that ball speed's terrible, the spin's really high, dispersion's terrible. This is a bad club. That's not useful, right? The point is just to try to give you data that is useful and sensible. That's why we also do multiple testing sessions. There are days that are better than others. Maybe one day you can't get but 3 good swings on the ball. So let's come back another day and let's try it again. And let's see if we learn something different about the club. And maybe that's a day where we find the center a little bit more often, right? So that's why you're going to see generally that on that graphic, the smash factors are quite good, because we're comparing good strikes. Sometimes they're a little better than others, but that's kind of the sampling methodology, is we're trying to pick good strikes. So to that point that all the equipment out there is pretty good, when you compare similarly good strikes, you're not going to see wild differences. You're not going to see that, let's take for an example, the Titleist GT4. That's a demanding driver. If I took every shot that I hit and I mashed it all together, the average ball speed would be quite a bit lower, because I don't hit the center of the face as often as I'd like to. Compare that to a Ping G430 Max, right? Very, very forgiving driver. I could hit that all over the face. Maybe the peak performance wouldn't be as good, but the ball speed on average would be higher. And would that be a better way to do things? Maybe, right? And we can argue about the methodology, and I'm frankly, probably not going to change anything, but I'd certainly be open to hearing comments um, about what you think might be a better methodology. But I think, again, just to give you my thought process, if we opened this up and said, well, we're going to throw every shot into the mix, well, again, now we're back to that problem of I don't get along with this club, right? So I had to take twice as many shots with this to get some good ones. Or let's say we cap it at 30 swings. It's just 30 swings, period. But I just came out, I was having a bad day. And I got to throw those 30 swings in there anyway. How is that accurately representing the golf club, right? You want it. I know it's a snapshot. I know that the launch monitor data is not the whole picture, but I still want that picture to be as good as it can be, or as accurate as it can be. And to me, the best way to make that picture accurate is by comparing like to like, good strikes to good strikes. So again, I just want to keep bringing back to the same point. If you want to understand the comparison from one club to another, you've got to read. There's a reason we write these reviews. We take the time to write the reviews. It's to give you the character of the club there. The numbers, again, they're useful to a point. And you will see that, let's say a Titleist GT3 is going to spin less than maybe a Cleveland Highbore. Maybe that's going to be a higher spin driver. So comparing like to like, you're going to see a little bit higher spin over there. You're going to see that GT3, for me, super aerodynamic head, great club speed, great ball speed. So there are some differences. There's some value in that launch monitor data, but really it's in the text where you're going to read and see, okay, Matt found that this GT3 was a very aerodynamic head. It's got some weight adjustability. It's probably meant for slightly better players. It's forgiving, but for a better player. That Highbore, and again, that was just an example that came to mind. That's a club you can hit it off that great big face almost anywhere, and it's still going to work pretty well. The numbers kind of jumped around. It was kind of a little interesting in that regard, but the end result, the carry distance and the dispersion, were really consistent. And that's all nuance that can't go into a launch monitor graphic. So that's the kind of long answer to this question that I thought was really good. And now I want to go ahead and just I want to pull on a few different threads with regard to launch monitor data, just because that's the topic of the day, and I think there are a few other things that are worth talking about. One that I'll knock out of the way here because it just comes up so routinely is comparing data from one review to another. We frequently say you can't compare data apples to apples from one review to another. Now, I just talked about the fact that we're comparing squared up, tried to be centered shots from each club. So we're trying to get the comparison as good as it can be, but anybody who's done anything, any kind of athletic or anything, high level intellectually, man, day to day, we're just not the same. And especially when you compare month to month or year to year, right? Again, I've never claimed to be a robot. I'm not Rory McIlroy. I'm a pretty good player. I'm okay. I work pretty hard at it. But I'm not delivering the club the same way every day. I don't have the same speed all the time. Those who follow really closely know there are times like I'm injured over the 11 years. I've had bum shoulder. I've had my wrists and elbows have been messed up where the speed comes down. And people want to go to the numbers. They look at two numbers and they say, oh, well, here you were swinging 5 miles an hour faster. That must be a better golf club. No, not at all. Like I was hurt over here. Here I was speed training and I was really peaked out. Did you read the review? So, the numbers really are not meant to be apples to apples at all. On top of that, you forget about the speed and the injury aspect of it. People's swings just kind of move around, right? We're working on different things at different times, and I'm the same way. There are some days where I can get 10 great strikes really easily. There are some days where that takes a lot of effort. Where for me to have, a certain dispersion feels easy. Some days a bigger dispersion, I had to work really hard to get it. So it's never meant to be this perfect like-to-like comparison. Except when sometimes we'll put a note in there. Hey, these were tested at the same time. You want to compare these head-to-head, like-to-like? Absolutely. But that is a frustration, to be honest, that I have with putting up the numbers and with some of the commenters, is they just want to look at the numbers. It is why we have had a lot of serious discussions over the years about just getting rid of the numbers, because maybe this will be the last point I make here, because I think it's a really important thing to end on. Numbers are not the truth any more than text is the truth. Okay, I think a lot of people look at numbers, no matter where it is, lists, launch monitor data like this or whatever, and they think, oh well, that's objective, that's truth, that's unbiased, and they read the text and say, oh well, that's just an opinion, that's whatever. I'm here to tell you, man, that is not the case. Like, you got to think about this for a minute here. One of the keys when I founded this site was transparency, right? I really wanted to be transparent about who I am as a player, who all these other writers on staff are as players, and you can kind of follow us, right? You can follow me in my golf journey, and I try to share some of my personality and things that are going on with me and what my game is like in my reviews and in my lessons and so on. And you can decide for yourself if you trust me or not, right? If you find my perspective valuable or not. I did that in contrast to what I see in all the forums, where you don't know who these people are, right? It's just Golf Guy 247, and he says this club's great, but I don't know who Golf Guy 247 is, right? You know me. Now you can see me. You've heard my voice for all these years in this podcast. Again, you trust me or you don't. And when I put numbers up, you are trusting that those are honest numbers. When I write something, when I say, hey, a putter is forgiving, it feels stable, it feels soft, feels hard, you're trusting that I'm being accurate. I'm being honest with my experience of this club. In all cases, it's trust. If I wanted to manufacture numbers, I could do that, right? The numbers are not some inherent lie detector. They're not an honesty machine, right? I could put up fake numbers. Right? I could write fake words. I don't do those things. Believe me, nobody's brought me enough money to be dishonest about golf clubs, right? This is just a thing that I do for fun. And I try to do it because I miss teaching very, very much. And I like to think it's helpful, and I have fun doing it. But there's nothing inherent in the numbers that is more or less honest than what's in the words. People love lists because they think the lists are some kind of objective thing. Oh, well, this was number one, and that means, it was superior to number two. It's why we don't do lists. It's why I don't do some kind of score, right? I did that whole piece about why I hate golf course rankings, because it kills the nuance. Right? If you trust me and you like what I have to say, I'll tell you some courses that I like, but I'm not going to sit here and say this is 1 and this is 3 and this is 7, and that's supposed to mean something. Right? Same thing I don't do with golf clubs. I would like you to come away from a review that I write saying, I know who this golf club is for. I know what this golf club does. Not that Matt told me to buy it. Not that Matt wanted me to be more or less excited about it. Just, is this a good for something based on his testing, right? And if you leave a review, whether if you're a slicer and you read a review of a tour style fade bias driver and you just walk away saying, well, I guess that's not for me. Cool. I feel like I did my job. I feel like I conveyed some accurate information to you, right? It's not to be a hype man for golf clubs or anything like that. It's just to try to give you information. If I was trying to be a hype man, I'd stop telling everybody to get fit, because that just makes everybody angry, right? I'd just tell you what to buy, and I'd make a list, and I'd say these are the top 5 drivers. I'd probably have a lot more traffic, but to me that's not the point. But just circling back to bring this one more time, there's nothing inherent in numbers that is any more objective or honest or truthful than what's in the text. To me, if anything, somebody wanting to take the time, whether it's me or anybody else, to explain something with detail and nuance, that's much more interesting than just looking at some numbers and saying, well, this one was 3 degrees offline. This is four degrees offline or 4 yards offline. Therefore, this one's better. Right? That's fine, right? But why? What got us there? Who tested it? Right? So I hope this was informational. I hope this was useful to you in some way or fashion. If it was, let me know. If there are more questions, if this raised new questions for you about launch monitor data, happy to answer them. If you are one of the people who are watching this on YouTube, thanks for checking it out there. Please, thumbs up and comment and all that stuff so more people can check this out. Subscribe. If you're a podcast listener, thank you for listening. Please subscribe and rate, review, and all that stuff. But regardless, thanks for taking this information in. Please feel free to fire away any questions you have. At any time, if you have topics you'd like me to get into, happy to do that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back with another episode soon.